Good evening and welcome to the Late Night Business. My name is Ian Dennis, and tonight we have a very interesting show lined up because I'm having a conversation with a renowned personality that you've seen her grace the TV screens for quite a while, and she's also an entrepreneur and also a coach, so much to discuss on this particular show. But before I get to introduce my guest, I'd like to tell you that, or rather remind you that we're here at the Capital Club, the place you need to be as an entrepreneur. At the Capital Club, you not only have access to a wide network, or rather a wide network of individuals across corporates, both locally and internationally. So literally networking at the Capital Club is such an interesting particular element of your life as an entrepreneur, so you need to join the Capital Club. The guest I'm speaking about is Muthoni Mukiiri. She's an entrepreneur, she's a coach. We've seen her on TV for the longest time. For those who speak Kikuyu, I can only just say Aterere. She was in Noro for a while. Yeah. So Muthoni, thank you so much for coming to the show. Nice to see you, looking lovely as always.
Thank you very much. I am happy to be here. Yeah.
The first question I like starting with all my guests, what exactly are you most grateful for today?
I am most grateful for the privilege to live my purpose, to find my purpose, and to live my life the way I want to live my life. Yes, I'm grateful for that. The privilege of doing what I want with my life and living my purpose, finding my purpose.
Interesting. Speaking about finding purpose, it's such an interesting element of everybody, but not everybody gets to find it. How did you manage to find your purpose?
For me, I believe my purpose is in education and transformation when it comes to emotional and mental wellness for women. And I found my purpose, I went through a hard time in my life. I went through a breakup, my parents relocated to another country. I went through an identity crisis, and then I was on TV, I was a news anchor. So it was a bit hard for me to actually accept I have a problem and I need to get help. Now when I went for therapy and for coaching and to try to find out what was happening with me, I realized when I was going through my healing, I realized a lot of what I learned through that is not information that's out here. A lot of women are struggling with relationship issues, healing trauma, dealing with fear, anxiety, all those things, and they don't know how to get help and they don't know what to do about it. So I feel like my healing journey happened so that I can find my purpose.
Interesting.
So my purpose is helping women to become more self-aware, to get into better relationships. Yeah.
Interesting. How does it feel living life in purpose? Because I think you've lived through both sides.
Yeah.
Not having known your purpose and then currently living whereby you feel like you know your purpose. How does it feel like?
It feels really good. It's freedom. It's freedom. You feel like this is what I was born to be. You know how we are told the most important days are the days you're born and the day you find out why you were born. So I feel happy and fulfilled. You know how sometimes when you go to work, by the end of the day, you feel so drained, you feel like you have no energy. Now when I do what I love to do, coaching and working with women, I feel like I want to do it more and more. I don't feel like something has been taken away from me. I feel like it fills my cup. Fulfillment is what happens when you start living your purpose. I was on TV for a long time, and one of the reasons why I'm no longer there is because there was something lacking. I didn't have that fulfillment. I always felt like I need to be somewhere else. Like this is not it. So I feel like now this is it for me. The coaching and working with women who are going through hardships and empowering them and giving them tools and techniques to deal with their issues.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Let me take you back, because I think we were having this conversation earlier before we went on air, and we're just laughing through it, the source of misinformation about your earlier life. I was just clarifying that your dad did die in the 1998. Your parents are still existing, but the internet says otherwise. Maybe you can just take us through your earlier life. Where did you grow up? How was your earlier bringing like?
So we saw that people have a lot of things to say about personalities they've never even met.
Yes.
Or they've never even spoken to. So sometimes you don't even know where this information comes from.
True.
So I was brought up in the farm back in Kiambu, Kiambu County. And then I had just a normal middle class upbringing. And then when I was around 10 years, my parents moved to the city, to Nairobi. I went to boarding school.
Boarding school in Kiambu or in Nairobi?
In Kiambu when I was 10 years old. Actually, I think that's where my trauma, I teach healing trauma. That's why I went through trauma. Because I felt abandoned, I felt neglected. I also went through a lot of bullying because I was a bedwetter. Yeah. So
until what time?
No, what do you mean until it like a few months, not till now.
I don't know, I'm just asking. When growing up, when you're 10 years old?
During that time, So
you're in boarding then?
Yeah, I went to boarding school when I was 10 years.
All right, interesting.
Yeah.
And then so you're saying part of the trauma was that you used to wet the bed when you were 10 years old.
It's shameful,
Yeah,
right?
yes.
And also because right now it's not like that time.
Mhm.
That time is, how could you know?
Yeah.
And,
Kuandika mattress hapo nje.
yeah,
Alafu semeni maji
it's
limwagika.
embarrassing, yeah, and then the smell, and
Yeah.
yeah. So I went through I faced a lot of bullying because of that. Also I felt like I went to boarding school when I was pretty young, and my older sister was there, but still I felt neglected, abandoned, and I feel that's where my childhood trauma started, when it started. So I went to boarding school, and then I went to high school, still in Kiambu, and then I went to campus, and then when I was in campus, that's when I started doing stage plays. I was in campus doing journalism.
So maybe high school, where did you go to high school?
I went to Kiambu County high school.
Kiambu
Yes.
High School?
St. Luke's High School.
St. Luke's High School.
Yeah.
Interesting. And going through this particular phase, what were your desires to be when you grew up during this particular phase?
I wanted to be, there used to be a journalism club in high school where, like on Fridays, the assembly, the parade, someone would come from the club and Akuja, and then they'd read the news of the week and all that. So I admired that. And then I used to watch Julie Gishuru on TV, Catherine Kasavuli, and I wanted to be like those women. So even after I left high school, I pursued journalism. Yes.
Interesting. So why did you go to campus? What did you study in campus?
I went to campus. I went to KMU, Kenya Methodist University, journalism, BA in journalism. Yes.
Interesting. So just growing up, you've mentioned that you had some elements of trauma, whereby maybe at 10 years you felt abandoned. What's it called? You had the issue of still wetting the bed back then and feeling all that particular trauma. How did your childhood shape you? Or maybe just looking back, how did your childhood shape you to who you are today?
Well, I think for a lot of us, when we go through something unfortunate, sometimes we want to jump to regret. I wish it didn't happen. But for me, I'm at a point where I've made peace with it. And I think the reason it happened was so that I can become who I am today, the coach. And so I can also talk to other women to heal their trauma, because I have healed my trauma. I'm still, healing is a long process. It's a lifelong journey to some people. So I think it has shaped who I am today. And I think I am strong, and I think I am vulnerable, and I am able to show up the way I'm able to show up because of what I went through and the lessons I had to learn and the healing I had to go through to become the woman I am today. So yeah, at the same time, even during when I was going through the boarding school, and even when I was a young girl, I always felt there was something more to me. Like I always felt I was going to be someone big, like this. Yeah, and I always have had that thing at the back of my mind. Till to date. Interesting. And also something you'd also mentioned quite earlier on, that the reason you went to boarding is because your dad relocated to Nairobi. Maybe what were your parents involved in, and how was it growing up under your parents? What are some of the elements that they instilled in you? How exactly was it? Okay. So I didn't go to boarding school because we moved to the city. We were taken to boarding school because it was better education, right? In the village, you go to the village primary school. So, but as a child, I grew up. It was a very happy childhood, and I remember we were having this game with my spouse the other day where we were talking about your favorite childhood memories, and I remember, like for me, remembering what we used to do, the games we used to play with my dad. He used to bring us chocolates. He used to bring us all those things. I had a really happy childhood. I think up until I went to boarding school, and I would never take my child to boarding school. I think it messed me to some extent. Yeah, it did a number on me. Yes.
Interesting. And what were your parents doing for a living back then? What was your dad doing? What was your mom doing?
So my parents have always been business people. My dad is a contractor, and my mom, at that time they were running a business, a timber. My mom was having a timber business. My dad was in Nairobi as a contractor. So they've always been business people, so long as I've known them. At some point, my mom was a housewife, but during that time when I was going to boarding school as a young girl, she was in business. Even back in the village, she was a farmer as well. She used to grow crops and sell them, yeah.
Interesting. And what are some of the lessons, because you grew up in an entrepreneurial family whereby both your parents were actually involved in business, what are some of the lessons that you saw from your parents that primarily have instilled, or rather have been instilled in you to date?
I think for me, first of all, consistency. Business is about consistency, because I saw my dad wake up every day, be consistent. He has done the same job. since I got to know myself, like he was at first he was a carpenter, and then he went to a contractor, and then he's still
graduated.
doing so right now he's still doing the same. He lives in the States, but he's still doing the same thing. Consistency and bettering yourself. I think that's the greatest lesson I learned from him. And another thing is also during those times, even during my upbringing, there were times where finances were tight and things were not okay. And I remember he used to say, now this year Christmas is not going to be the same. Things are like this and like that. But it doesn't mean we can't have a better Christmas next year. So I learned that it's okay to go through hard times as a business person. It doesn't mean it's over for you. And seasons change, and that's part of life. But the most important part is looking at how you can get back to that place, to that good place, or to where you want to be, even in terms of profits or in terms of growing your business. So my father taught me that, actually, even when we will talk about that, when I told him I was leaving employment, I remember he told me, you know, business is very hard. And you know, the hard part about being self-employed is working and also getting to know where the money will come from, you know, for the bills and for survival. So I learned I think my business skills come from my father, because my father is very resilient. He's very consistent. He's a businessman. He's a Kikuyu businessman. Yes.
Interesting. And growing up, did you have any particular entrepreneurial exploits that you tried in, maybe in high school or in primary or while in campus? Why did you have any particular intent to go into business back then?
Yeah, I remember in high school, I used to sell biscuits. Like, you know, that it's by the carton. I used to really sell them. And then also my mother had a business where she was selling shoes. So when we used to close... Your
mother used to do everything?
Yeah. You have to sell everything. Something has to be bought.
She was a farmer.
Yeah.
She was
a farmer. Yeah. And then she started selling. She even had a salon. And at some point also had an electronics shop. At some point she had
all
an
at the same time
shop.
or just different faces?
Different faces. But some were running at the same time. Yeah, simultaneously.
So your mom used to do everything?
Yeah. We had no choice at our household. So when we used to close school, like there was a time she was selling shoes. So nyinyi ndio mnaenda mnauza kifunga shule. Even there's a time she had a salon. So
what
when
kind of shoes? Children's shoes or what?
No, grown-ups.
Mkifunga shule mnaenda
mnauza.
Mnapewa target na mom.
Na mnaambiwa, you know, at what point should you bargain? And unajua akisema hivi unamwambia hivi and all that. Yeah.
Interesting. And how was you in high school then or in university?
In high school. Yeah.
How did that experience teach you?
It teaches you how to think like a business person, how to think in terms of you're giving value, but also what's in it for you. Yeah, because we were told you can bargain, but up to this extent. Yeah, so you know you have to also, as much as you're trying to give the other person what they want, you also have to leave something for yourself. Also, at some point she also had a salon. So when we used to close school, tunafanya blow dry, we are being taught how to wash hair. I think they instilled that in us very early on. Yeah.
Interesting. And were you being paid? Ama ilikuwa unaishi kwa nyumba yake for free, so there's nothing to
unalipwa na nani? It's part of being a child. Their child. Who was gonna pay you?
Child labor.
It was part of it. You know now you know how like during our upbringing, if the parent is a farmer, pia unajipata kwa shamba. You know, and then they tell you unafikiri school fees inatoka wapi. So you can't even ask to be paid. They can maybe give you 100 bob, 200 shillings just to buy a few things for yourself, but not actually like pay. Like now I'm paying you to do this, or you're working from 8 to 5 and then at 5 you can say bye bye. Yeah.
Interesting. And how did you end up in the theatre? How did you end up in theatre? Because I saw you also had a stint in the theatre before probably getting into media. Maybe how did you end up in theatre, and why did that interest come about?
So after high school, I had a lot of time to watch TV, and I felt like I could do a bit of acting. So when I went to campus, I decided to go to Kenya National Theatre to see what's happening. And then I came through auditions. I started doing stage plays for Heartstrings Entertainment. And then I realized the people who were doing for Heartstrings, the Kikuyus then, would also do Kikuyu stage plays for Fanaka, for Johari, for Ikenya Arts. So I also started doing the Kikuyu stage plays. And actually that's when my Kikuyu got better. After that I got a job at Kameme to do voiceovers, adverts, the classifieds and all that. So when I was at Kameme, that's when I got the inaugural job as a news anchor.
Interesting. And so in high school, were you involved in the theatre, or was it just something an interest that popped up much later?
No, I did music festivals. I was a really good dancer. I was tall and I was thin and I was really flexible. Yeah.
Also used to dance in high school?
I used to music
So you'd
festivals.
never done theatre before you got into theatre?
No, I'd never done theatre before. Yeah.
And how is it? Because it is something new, because I'm just learning from you that...
It is nerve-wracking. It is nerve-wracking. That's the first, I think, encounter being on stage and being at a space where people are actually focusing on you, people are looking at you to entertain them, and they're actually, you know, giving you attention. So it was a battle because my confidence was really low. I really had to get the courage, and it put me out here. Actually, I think from theatre, that's when I started believing in myself. I can really be someone, you know, it can actually work out for me. And I think that's what gave me confidence even to try the news job. So it was tough, and the directors can be really, you know, they're trying to push you to be your best self. They can be really tough. There are also directors that are also very nurturing, but I think theatre is what... It was the open door for me, was the first door for me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And for how long did you do theatre, and what are some of the memorable kind of plays you're involved in? Because you're doing, what's it called? Theatre in vernacular language. Yeah. How exactly was it? Because you told me you never used to speak Kikuyu fluently.
I never used to.
Yeah.
Actually, writing, you know, you speak to in the house, in their homestead. Of course, the parents speak their mother tongue, but I never used to know how to write. But now when you start doing the Kikuyu stage plays, because they come with the English, scripts in English.
Oh, the scripts are in English?
Yeah,
and then
so you have to read, understand, and now say it in mother tongue. So you have to write. Because you're not just translating. Yeah, because some of they're from, I think the scripts are written maybe in the US or Britain. So there are some things that even if you translate, they don't make sense here. So you have to read, understand, and now translate in Kikuyu. So that's when actually my Kikuyu became better polished and know how to write and read and understand it. So there were some very interesting plays. There's one we did where I'm trying to remember the name, I can't. I was a woman who was going through domestic violence, and I was also a mother. And I remember at some point, and it was during that point where there are women in central Kenya that were chopping off manhoods. Yeah. So I did a play where my husband was really violent. I even had to be the one to take my sons for circumcision and all that, because my husband is a drunk, he's never at home. And so at some point it becomes too much for me, and I cut off his manhood. And I remember at the end of the play, I'm holding it like this, and there's blood, you know, the fake blood. So I'll always remember that one.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And how was it, what's it called? Because you're doing it while in university. Were you getting money from the place to supplement your life through university, or you're just doing it for fun and just trying to explore?
Now, I moved out from home at some point. So my parents were paying my university, but I had to survive. I had to pay rent, bus fare and all that. So that money was helping me to survive, like to pay bills, my necessities, food. Yeah.
Interesting. And now how did you end up, what's it called? Because how I got to know you was through Inoro, what's it called? I mean, I don't speak Kikuyu myself, but people think I'm Kikuyu, I don't know why. But how did you end up in Inoro?
So when I was still in Kameme, I was still doing stage plays as well. We got auditions. We were told, hey,
so Kameme is a radio station, right?
Yeah, it is a radio station.
There are stage plays on radio?
Now there's also a TV station, but then it was only the radio station. So there were auditions. There was a call for auditions. You go to audition for a show. At first it was a cooking show. So I showed up and I did my thing in Kikuyu. No one had said it was a TV station. So and then after a while we were told to send your photos, and then I had really nice professional photos. So when they saw my photos, they were like, wow, we can try her for news. Because at that time they were trying to look for people to do news in Kikuyu. They used to get people who are really good in Kikuyu, but they felt like they were not as presentable. You know, news anchors, you have to also do it's also about the demeanor. You also have to be appealing. Oh, so but then, so why are you laughing?
No, it's because I hear the joke when you hear radio presenters, you cannot, who they look like, and now they sound very different, the same thing to TV. But anyway.
Yeah, they say ati hauna sura ya radio. You know,
sura ya mbatani na lunga.
Yeah, so for a lot of young people, for a lot of most young people, they maybe are presentable, but their mother tongue is not. And those that have really good mother tongue maybe are not really what they were looking for in terms of appearance. So now when they saw my photos, they were like, just come over and try something else. So we were told to dress officially and look good. So now apparently the auditions were at Citizen TV. So when we went there, that's when we were told, oh, it's a TV station and you're trying to audition for news. So yeah, so I auditioned, and it was also tough because they give you the newspaper,
Yeah.
and then the front
Title.
yeah, title.
Heading, yeah.
They tell you to read it and present it.
Mm-hmm.
Read it, understand it, and read it as a news story,
Mm-hmm.
like a news anchor.
Mm-hmm.
It was tough, but I was able to do it, and I got the job.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Interesting. So here you are,
Here
the
I
lady
am.
from the village who got himself into university, now has getting herself a TV job. So we're going to take a short commercial break, and then after that, we find out how exactly was that particular limelight, what are some of the side hustles she did, and then what are some of the businesses she got into. So I'll see you after the break. Welcome back to the show. Before we went on a break, Muthoni was just taking us through her journey from the village, some of the challenges she went through, and here she is. She found herself as a news anchor, and you are a news anchor for quite a while. First of all, how was that experience? You wanted to be a journalist, you wanted to be on TV while you're in high school, and then you end up now living that particular dream. How was that season of your life like?
So at first it was huge. That
Mhm.
opportunity was huge. Live TV and news time. People look up to waiting for the news time. And you remember how I told you I had a feeling I was going to be someone big and I was going to be influential.
Yeah.
So when I got that opportunity, I was like, this is it. Like, this is it. This is the feeling I've been feeling all along.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to do a lot. It took a lot for me to really match that opportunity because I was coming from a space where I was, from theatre and all that.
Yeah.
And now this is so big for me. I had to really be believable. I had to look credible. I had to look serious, and I had to communicate. So it took a lot for me, and I had to really work hard to fit in and to actually not even to fit in, to stand out. But I did, and I loved that job. I did, and every time, like even when I used to be do the news even alone, I had a co-anchor. We used to have an amazing time because we had good chemistry. But even those times when I had to do news on my own, I loved it. I owned the studio. Yes.
Interesting. And I remember, because I don't speak Kikuyu, and I remember the first time we actually met was when I was doing my previous show called The Business Coach, and I got to find out that you're an anchor, but you're also involved in business, and you're running it was a wig selling business.
Yeah, hair business.
And I think it was actually my spouse who told me. I'm like, there's Muthoni who sells wigs and stuff. How did you get into the business, and how are you combining then? Because you're a news anchor and then you're also running your own side hustle. Kikuyu tu nilikuwa nakusumbua, I mean, what exactly was it? Because you told me your mom used to do everything.
I think so, yeah. It's actually, I think it's the love for good life. We all want a good life, yeah. So I figured I had a salary, but when you're employed, the salary fits into your lifestyle. So if you want something extra, you also have to do something extra in terms of making extra money. So I figured I wear wigs every day. People see me in wigs every day. It was a requirement when I started working at the
you have to wear wigs.
You couldn't do, If
right.
Afterwards, after a while, that's when I even did the short hair. But before, you couldn't show up with your hair like that. You had to really have that look. So I figured, why not focus on something I know about?
Yeah.
Why not sell something I really understand? That's how I started my wig business. I actually started it in the boot of my car, I told you.
Yeah.
The person who used to sell wigs to me told me, why don't you try selling some of the wigs to your co-anchors, to your fellow anchors, even at Citizen TV? And he gave me a few pieces. He was like, I'm not even going to charge you. You go, sell, alafu utaniletea pesa. So that day he gave me, I sold two wigs. I was like, whoa, I should have started this 10 years ago. And then I carried on, and after a few months now I started the wig business. I was able to do it because I was a primetime news anchor, so I used to go to work in the evening. So during the day, like morning hours, I was able to go check out my shop, do a few things, yes. But it was also tough, having full-time employment and also having to run a business and actually make money. It was tough, but it was possible. Yeah, and I did it. Yeah.
So you can also you tried it, you loved it, you started seeing that particular as an opportunity. How are you now juggling between the business, setting up the business, and also your full-time job?
So I used to work from 3 p.m. I was a primetime news anchor, meaning I used to do the 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. news.
I used to do both.
Yeah,
Ah,
at some
interesting.
point, yeah.
So in Kikuyu, it's like, you know, on news you're used to 7 in Kiswahili and then it's 9.
Yeah.
So Kikuyu, it's Kikuyu, or there's a
Yeah,
Muranga Kikuyu and Nyeri Kikuyu at 9.
And Embu Kikuyu, no. No.
Oh, it's the same Kikuyu.
Yeah, it's the
Alright.
same. But now, during the 7 p.m. bulletin is the short form. Like kama SMS to kidogo tu mnaonjesha, and then at 9 now it's when we have the full bulletin. So I used to report to work at 3 p.m. And leave at 10 p.m. So I had time during the morning hours, yeah, to set up to go check out my business, to do a few things, to make sure the business is running smoothly, I have stock, and to also market my business on social media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. And now, what's it called? Because your business became quite successful.
I did.
And then, what's it called? Why did you now decide now to stop it? You told me to the point you decided now to cut off the business.
Yeah. So, when I was working at Inoro, I really thank God for that opportunity because it really gave me a lot of exposure. It really put me at a place where I didn't know I could reach. I was able, even right now, I'm still riding on that fame, by the way. I still have credibility because of that, and I really thank God for that opportunity. So now, I didn't stop running the wig business. I first left Inoro. I left media first, and I continued with my business.
Why did you decide to leave Inoro? I'm like, everything was going quite well. You paid quite
Yeah,
nice. You're in the
was.
limelight. Why did you decide to quit media?
Now, 3 years into it, you know how I told you I started feeling like this is it. At some point, as I continued to do it, and when I started loving it and all that, I still felt empty. I still felt a part of me is not fulfilled, is not there yet. And during that time when I was working there, I went through a difficult time in my life. I went through an identity crisis. My parents relocated to a different country. I went through a breakup. I was just sad and broken. And during that time when I was going through that hard time, I decided to go to seek help. Yeah, I decided to go for therapy. I went for coaching and all that. So when I went for therapy and coaching, I realized, whoa, a lot of things to do with emotions, with mental health, with the breakups, with self-awareness is not information that's available out here, especially in Kenya. And so I figured the reason I went through the healing and the reason I went through that difficult time is for me to be able to find my healing, to be able to help other women heal in their own space. So when I went through healing, I realized this is what I want to do for life. Like I felt like I found my purpose. So I started my YouTube channel called Muthoni's Mission to focus on healing, trauma, breakup, self-awareness, loving yourself, dealing with fear, anxieties, and all those things. So when I started that, I realized, wow, this is it. Like this is it. This is what I was waiting for all along. So I decided I felt like I would not be able to do it in full-time employment and still doing my business. Something had to give. And so my business was not gonna give. Employment would have to give. So it was a hard decision for me because that platform, like I said, really gave me a lot of exposure. It put me out here. So, but I struggled with that decision for such a long time. I saved up and I remember I wanted to leave beginning of 2020, but then COVID hit. So then I'm here asking myself, so leaving employment now that there's COVID, what happens? How will I survive? But then at some point I had to ask myself, what if COVID continues for a long time? Yeah. What about the people who are not employed, but they still have been hit by COVID? They're still surviving. So I made a decision to leave.
Interesting. And what are some of the lessons in terms of that particular transition from employment to business? Because I know there are so many people probably at that particular brink. I want to make a jump. What are some of the lessons that you learned about making that jump from employment into business?
You have to know why you're leaving. The why is really important because the why is what will help you go through tough times when they come. You know, because some people just jump into, I just want to resign, and that's it. Then after 2 months, you're back to begging the employer or you're going back to shags, you're going back to the village. So why you're leaving is really important. And number 2, planning ahead, especially financially. They say, it is said by business coaches like you that you need to have like 6 months to up to a year upkeep. Yeah. Like you need to be able to survive the way you've been surviving in employment the same way. So I knew that and I worked on that part. I knew why I was leaving and I also knew how you are told this is such a big space and you know when you leave it, people might forget you, you know, you might never come to the same platform again. But I had to remind myself, I know who I am. So long as I don't forget who I am, so long as I know why I'm doing what I'm doing, that's enough. No, it doesn't matter if people don't see me, so long as I see me and I know what I'm doing. And I took the leap of faith and I'm glad I did it.
Interesting. So you're jumping from, what's it called? something that you dreamt of for quite a while, you managed to live it. Now, because of a series of, or whatever, you went through this particular element of your life. Now and after healing, you wanted now to become a coach. So these are also another business that you want to set up, which is very different from who you are. How exactly was it? Because
okay. So now I had fear. Let me say this. I had a lot of fear, and had fear of unknown. You know that fear, you don't know what's going to happen after. But I really had to call myself to a meeting and tell myself, I don't know what's going to happen, and I have fear of things might fail, but what if they work out? What if this is what I've been waiting for all along? So, and I told myself, the same grace I've had in this channel, in this media house, is the same grace I'm going out with. I'm still the same person, yeah? I can also work towards becoming what I want. So when I decided now I am transitioning to now talking about wellness. Initially, it wasn't a business. I just wanted to do it for the love of wanting to help and wanting other women to be self-aware. So I started my YouTube channel. That's what I was doing, and then the focus on my big business, influencer. I had numbers on social media, so I was also going to help push other brands. That was my focus. When I started my YouTube channel, it grew so much. And then after a while, I had, now I have left employment. Now this is me on YouTube, selling wigs and influencing. After a while, I started getting a lot of questions, and a lot of people even actually wanted me to help them, even before I became a coach. And I also had some therapists and some counselors telling me, Muthoni, you need to monetize what you're doing. You're giving a lot of information here. Just go to school and do this professionally. And that's when I decided to do it professionally, and to go get certified, and for the confidence part, you know, imposter syndrome is real. So when I went to school, I got certified, and now I became a full-time coach.
Interesting. So it's quite like going through, what's it called?
Metamorphosis.
Yeah, it's like a because of like you're an anchor now. Now you're changing into a coach. So guys have known you because of this, but now this is a different Muthoni. How exactly was it making that particular transition? Because it's like, it's becoming someone new. And something we're not used to. We're used to seeing you on TV. We're used to seeing you doing news, and then you're used to seeing you selling wigs. Now here you are as a coach. This is another business that you need to set up. How exactly was that particular transition like?
It was hard. It was hard. And actually, you know, I know who I want to be in my head. I know this is what I want to do, but people are not in my head. People know me as the girl, the news reader, or the news anchor. So for me to try to now, especially doing it on my platform where my followers are from the news channel, it was really hard for people to accept the person I am. But I knew this is who I had already accepted. This is who I am. This is what I want to do, and I knew it was going to take time. It's been a journey, but I am at a point today where people have actually come on board. People right now refer me to a coach, and they come to me for help, and they look forward to my content. It was hard at first. It was. The rebellion is real. But I also came to understand the critics. Just because you're reading news doesn't mean you know this stuff. And you know, and some people are committed to misunderstanding you no matter what you do. And there are people who will always be stuck on your past, the person you are. No matter who you try to be, they'll always try to pull you back and remind you this is who you are. But so long as you know you've decided to change, this is who you want to be now, that's all that matters. So I just focused on that and just moved forward.
And your business model is very unique. You're literally focusing on mindset, healing of trauma, and then specifically you're focusing on women. Why women? The boy child, you have a lot of problems.
Actually, but you know, also when women are empowered and they're healed, they're better also for the boy child. You get better sisters, better women, better wives, you know. For me, I was drawn more towards the women because also like my coaching, as much as I'm certified now and have the papers, it comes from my own personal struggles as a woman. So maybe that's where it comes from. But funny enough, I get this question a lot. What about us? Can I book a session with you? Sometimes I do boot camps, like healing boot camps, self-love boot camps. And I find that sometimes men come and pay and I have to refund them. Because that's not my niche. That my target audience is women. Maybe eventually I might have to incorporate everyone, but for now I focus on women. I feel more drawn towards women.
Interesting. Let's speak about trauma, because I know in the world of business, trauma has to be there. You always have to face heartbreaks. Biashara is just... how does one deal with the trauma of probably not, what is it called, probably you've gone, your business failing. Maybe we can just discuss about that. You're trying to set up a business, or maybe you've been auctioned. How does one deal with trauma, mostly as entrepreneurs? Because I know there's so many entrepreneurs watching this, I think you've not really gone through business if you've not experienced a trauma.
I have.
No, I'm just saying, like most guys who are
yeah,
doing
most business people.
yeah, you have to go through trauma at one point. You
Yeah,
have to be offshore, you have to face
challenging.
failure.
Yeah.
How do you, as an entrepreneur, how do you deal with trauma?
Especially failure. So you look, most people, the reason why we are scared of failing, the reason why we don't want to start things is because we look at failure as the end result. We put a full stop after failure. But does life stop? When if your business, it doesn't, it still goes on. So instead of putting a full stop, you put a comma and then you continue with the sentence. Now, this business could fail, comma. If it fails, what do? I start over again. I take the lessons and move on. Or comma, it could actually work out for me. Maybe this is what will give me a lot of money. So instead of looking at failure as an end, look at it as put a comma.
And
what
how
happens?
How does one now build that particular mindset? Because you know this business was your all. This is my baby.
Yes.
Like I was somewhere last week, and I saw someone's business had completely been auctioned. It is a business that had been there for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
How does a person in that situation whereby this has been my all for the last 20 years and I've lost it all in just a second? How does one now build that mindset? Okay, it's done. There's the comma. How do I build this mindset?
Okay. As a mindset coach, there are different mindsets. We have the growth mindset, we have the positive mindset, the challenge mindset, and we have also the entrepreneurial mindset. Now, when you start a business, you have to have the growth mindset. And you have to have you get the growth mindset by always thinking as a beginner, having a beginner's mindset. You're always learning, you're never there. That's why sometimes even when you sit down with CEOs, most of them are not even interested in telling you. They also want to hear from you because it's a learning journey. So the mindset you need to have is the growth mindset. Even if you fail, it's teaching, it's part of growth. It's teaching you something. So what can you take from that and use it moving forward? Yeah. And I say the person who starts something and fails is not the same as someone who's not started. You're way ahead. So you take the lessons and that's what you apply moving forward. At least you know that thing is not for you now. You can do something, something different. Yeah.
Something also I've also observed, because what's it called? In the chair you've seated, I've hosted so many people, and something that I've seen is that entrepreneurship and business affects relationship. Let me give us, and I don't know, weirdly, it's from my observation, from the guests I've actually had, and I won't reveal the names, it's mostly been on women. Women who end up being ultra successful end up having divorce. And primarily they started that particular business together with their spouses, but sort of ended up, the business became successful, the woman became successful, and then they end up being divorced. What might be that particular reason that leads to this, whereby you started with a spouse, but you don't, when success comes, it's not there? What usually happens within that particular timeline?
I think it's important to strike a balance. You can't be everything. You can't be 100% everywhere. You can't be 100% in business and also even as a mother or as a spouse, especially. And now I have a child now, and now as a mother, it's very hard for you to also be this successful woman, top 5 in Kenya or whatever, and still be the same when it comes to motherhood. At some point, something has to give, or you have to do less of everything. But when you focus so much on one area, it's common sense. I don't want to say common sense, but it's what the other side will suffer. Another thing, sometimes when women are very successful and they're bringing money and they can do a lot for themselves, sometimes the spouses relax. And maybe how they would treat a woman who's very successful is not the same way they treat someone who doesn't have that. They show up more for the woman who doesn't have that. They feel that like the woman who is bringing a lot can do a lot for herself. But deep down, we want to be taken care of. We're still little girls who want to be pampered. So it could be maybe the woman focused more on the business and now didn't give a lot of attention to the relationship, or it could be the spouse relaxed. Yeah, and then the woman felt taken for granted. Yeah.
And how can one build a balance in such particular coincidence? Because I know there's always success also comes through relationships. So how can one actually be able to get that particular balance in terms of the endeavor to build their business and to become successful in it, in what exactly it is that they're doing?
It's important to put systems in place because you can't be everywhere at the same time. You can't be here 100%, you're at home 100%, you're going to your child's sports day and everything. You can't. It's important to put, even at home, make sure things are running smoothly. We say every married woman needs a wife as well. You need that help. So in business, learn to delegate, learn to also teach people who you're employing how to do the work and how they can even do it without your presence, and do the same thing at home. They can run smoothly if you delegate and if you have systems in place. You don't have to do everything yourself. it's not possible.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And from your journey, because I know there's something very interesting about your journey. It's been a journey of metamorphosis and trying to, what's it called, become the best of your version in whatever particular point you've you've been through as an anchor, as a coach, as an entrepreneur. Just looking back, what are some of the lessons in reflection and in hindsight that you can actually see that have been instrumental to having you be who you are? Most actually after having gone through the trauma that you went through.
Mm-hmm. Some of the lessons in my life have to do with believing in myself.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing courage is the most important virtue to be able to carry all the other virtues. Yeah. Believing in myself, knowing that I am important too, and what I want out of life. The fact that I see what I want is important enough without having approval from everybody else. I've also learned to be okay with being misunderstood, people not knowing why I'm doing what I'm doing, and and that's okay with me. I just have learned to stay focused, because I've learned when you focus on telling bloggers, no, that's not true, that's not my real name, or this is, and when you focus on proving the critics wrong, you lose focus. So I've learned to really stay focused on my goal, on the end goal, to look at the prize at the end of it all. And it's really been working for me.
Interesting.
Yeah, because there's a lot of times the side shows will make you lose focus.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And before you come to an end, you have a book coming up, Becoming the Woman. Maybe you can just tell us a bit what is the book about and why the book at this particular point in time?
So the book, I started writing this book in the year 2020 when I started my passion, talking about trauma and the coaching and personal development. So the book is a roadmap. It's a guide to how you can heal your trauma, love yourself, to become the woman you've always wanted. We always have that woman. You know, even me as I'm seated here, even you, there's always that woman I want. I want.
For me, mine is a man.
Yeah.
I'm not they.
You're not they, he, she. All right. So, so this book will help you become that woman, become the best version of yourself. It's a guide. And the reason I decided to put it in writing is because therapy is not very affordable, and some people don't believe in such things, but you can read that in a book. So I have an upcoming event to launch this book. It's a full event, and it's also a book launch on 2nd of November. Yeah, so the poster is on my social media pages and more details.
Interesting. So you can actually just check out the book. It's coming up, Becoming the Woman Becoming the Woman of Your Dreams.
Yes.
So before even you come to the end of the show, I have a few questions, 10 questions, quick fire. So whatever that comes to your mind, just answer that. So the first question, what's the greatest risk you've ever taken?
Leaving employment to start coaching.
What's your favorite month?
February.
What is your favorite word?
My favorite word, kindness.
Describe your style in one word.
Comfortable.
What were you most afraid of as a child?
Failing. No, not failing, disappointing.
I thought you'll say wetting my bed.
Disappointing my father. I think that was the biggest fear.
What has been your favorite age so far?
I think 34.
Interesting. What is one thing that's worth spending money on?
Personal development, working on yourself.
If you could afford any car, which one would you drive?
Oh, I have so many. I think Wrangler.
Money or happiness?
Happiness.
Are you more of a thinker or a doer?
I am both. Sometimes I can overthink, and I'm also very good when it comes to execution. So,
interesting.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Muthoni, for having come to the show. You can actually check out Becoming the Woman of Your Dreams. That you can actually just follow her on our social media platform, and also you can get to attend the event that's actually coming up to launch her book. So thank you so much for having come to the show.
Thank you.
As always, we're coming to you from the Capital Club, the place you need to be as an entrepreneur, because being a member of the Capital Club gives you access to a huge array of amenities. And also one thing I forgot to give myself a shout out. Wow, thank you so much, guys. I was voted in as the TV host of the year on the People's Choice Award. So thank you so much for this. So meaning that everything that you're doing, it's being appreciated. My name is Ian Dennis. This has been the Late Night Business. Until next time, I'll see you right here on KTN Home.